Welcome, everybody, to the Sunday edition of the Huddle Hub podcast. My name is Metal Mike, and today we are doing our preseason predictions. Now, I do 3 versions of predictions before the season kicks off, and this is every NFL season. Every year I've been doing this for probably the past 10 years. Okay, this is year, I think, number 10, actually, to where I do a post-draft prediction. I do a preseason prediction before teams actually start training camp, preseason, all that stuff. I do predictions, and then I do predictions a week before the season kicks off. I do 3 steps of predictions. So today's predictions are not my final predictions. These are predictions for how I see teams today. Okay, what I think teams would be able to do if the season started today, and ultimately them getting through the 18 weeks of the regular season. Okay, so have no fear. This is not final predictions. This is just preseason predictions. But they still matter. Why? Because I did my post-draft predictions about a week after the 2026 draft. And, things might be a little different this time around. And we are going to do these live. We are going to do all 32 teams live today on air. Thanks to Cam, who is my co-host on the Sunday edition of the Huddle Hub podcast during the season. Showed me a website. I'm very excited to present this on air today. I am super excited. And the fun thing is we're going to get all 32 teams done today because it's not going to take, a couple days to do this. This website legitimately keeps track of every pick you make. So, for example, if I'm predicting for the Rams, all of their matchups are saved. And when I go to that other team, let's say the 49ers, the 2 matchups for the 49ers and Rams are already under the 49ers. So I don't have to worry about remembering whether I picked the Rams to win or lose a game, anything like that. Everything saves. And I've timed this. It's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour to do, which means today's show may run slightly longer than a normal Sunday morning show. Okay. Now, we do have some news stuff to talk about. And you know what? I mean, I kind of sit here thinking, what is fully newsworthy to talk about? We want to get to the predictions, right? So we're going to kind of run through this new stuff very quickly. We're not going to waste a lot of time on the news today. We are going to get through this so we can start doing our predictions. Before we get into everything, please make sure you're heading over to the Huddle Hub podcast over on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, X, and on Epic Studios at the Huddle Hub Pod. You're going to hit that follow button over on YouTube. You're going to hit the subscribe button. That's how you follow on the YouTube. And, of course, over on the Twitch channel at the Huddle Hub Podcast. All of our social media links are in the Twitch bio. You just click on the one you desire to go to and help us build the Huddle Hub Podcast through the rest of the 2026 NFL offseason and beyond. Okay? This is the last time I'm saying NFL offseason because preseason kicks off this week. Can you believe that? Crazy, right? Hall of Fame game coming up in a week and a half. Panthers, Cardinals. I'm excited for that game. I'm going to watch the Panthers and Cardinals Hall of Fame game. I know it means nothing. I know it means nothing statistically. I know it means nothing record-wise. But you know what it does mean? It means football is back, baby. And I am super duper excited. Don't forget to join us on the Tuesday edition of the Huddle Podcast as well. Me and John have been running down and talking about each conference in college football. We've done the Sun Belt Conference already. We did Conference USA and we did the American Conference last week. This week we are going to be doing what conferences are we doing? We did the Mountain West already. I got to run down I got to look at the conferences we've already done. We've done a couple conferences already. That's why it's kind of hard. We've done the MAC. Okay, so we've done the MAC conference. We've done the Mountain West Conference. We are going to be doing the Big 12 and the Pac 12 next. We've done Conference USA and we've done the American Conference already. So our next conferences are the Big and Pac-12. And we're probably going to throw in the Independent as well because Independent last year only consisted of 2 teams. So come join us on the Sunday edition of the Huddle Hub podcast as we run down each conference in college football to get you guys ready for the 2026 college football season. Real quick, the top 100, right? So the NFL is doing a top 100 list as they do every year. And the last time we talked about the top 100 list was last Sunday. And I believe we got through number 70 through 61. And this week we got 60 through 51. All right. So the NFL's top 100 list of 2026 from 60 to 51. Starting off at number 60, Brock Bowers, tight end of the Raiders. He dropped 36 spots from 2025 on this list this year. At number 59, Bo Nix, quarterback of the Denver Broncos. He jumped up by 5 spots. He was number 64 last year. He is now number 59. At number 58, Nico Collins, wide receiver of the Texans, dropped 26 spots. At number 57, Deion Dawkins, offensive tackle of the Bills. He dropped 15 spots. At number 56, quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts, dropped 37 spots. At number 55, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys, dropped 20 spots. And I can understand, I'm going to say this right now. CeeDee Lamb, that one kind of surprised me, but at the same time, it didn't because CeeDee Lamb dealt with the injury last year. And I don't think he would have dropped 20 spots if he did not get injured. Okay, I think he would have probably jumped up by like 5 spots, at least. Because CeeDee Lamb, before he got injured and before he started having issues last year, he was having a pretty good season. So I don't think he would have dropped at all on this list if he would have stayed healthy fully in 2025. So at number 54, Fred Warner, linebacker of the 49ers, dropped 38 spots from 2025. At number 53, Devontae Adams. He is new on the list, wide receiver of the Rams. At number 52, Tristan Wirf, offensive tackle of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He dropped 24 spots from 2025. And then finally at number 51, Caleb Williams, quarterback of the Chicago Bears, is new to the list. So he's on this list for the first time. Now, the NFL is voted on, the NFL Top 100 is voted on by the players. It gets revealed on X. 2 players get revealed at 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. daily, Monday through Friday, from June 22nd to August 21st. Before one top 10 player is unveiled, each weekday begins at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday, August 24th through Friday, September 4th. So the top 10 will be revealed each day from the 24th to September 4th, August 24th to September 4th. And that is when the top 10 will be revealed. So there it is, the additions to the top 100 players of the 2026 NFL season. Let's get into the news that came out in the world of football. Commissioner Roger Goodell, his contract is coming up, and the owners have to vote in order to renew contract. I think Roger Goodell's contract is going to get renewed. For the most part, he has been one of the best commissioners for the NFL. I know a lot of people are not the biggest fan of Roger Goodell, but let's face it, look where he has taken this league. Okay. He has turned this league into not only a national, like, mega league, he's turned this internationally. There are dozens and dozens of international games this year, and it's because Roger Goodell is opening up the doors to the NFL. I mean, you have players coming from other countries that entered the NFL draft. They played other sports. You know, it's such an open world in the NFL now, basically, to the point Roger Goodell was the intricate part of doing this. So I think Roger Goodell, because of the opportunities that he has opened for all 32 NFL teams, he's going to get a new contract, and Roger Goodell will stay as the commissioner of the National Football League. Simple as that. Director of Personnel for the Arizona Cardinals, Ryan Gold. We remember he got suspended for suspicions of gambling last week. These accusations are because the accusations are that he was giving out vital information about the 2026 NFL draft for the Arizona Cardinals and giving it to people that bet on who the Cardinals are going to draft. He is denying these accusations. He's saying that they were blatantly false, and he is appealing his suspension right now. So we'll have to see if Ryan Gold does end up getting the appeal for his suspension and be able to be back with the team. Defensive tackle, the Green Bay Packers, Devontae Wyatt signed a 3-year, $57 million extension with the Green Bay Packers. This is a huge deal because we know the Packers, made some moves during the offseason, trading away intricate parts of their defense. And what do you basically got to do when you let go of those big parts? You got to build big parts. And Devontae Wyatt is set to be a big part of that Green Bay Packers defense, getting this big contract. So they have a lot of focus on him with giving him such a big contract. So linebacker of the Miami Dolphins, Jordan Brooks, he also received a 3-year, $51.3 million extension. Jordan Brooks, same thing. The Dolphins are going to start relying on these guys that they are giving big contracts to because they believe that they are going to be the intricate part of building their franchise. The Miami Dolphins right now, people look at them and they say, oh, the Dolphins are a mess. They're not going to have a great season, all that stuff. They are in the realm of the unknown. Right now, last week, I did my quarterback rankings, and Malik Willis was number 32 on the list. It wasn't because of the fact that I thought maybe the Miami Dolphins are going to have a bad season. It's just that Malik Willis is not fully proven as a starting quarterback. Just like looking at Tua Tagovailoa, out in Atlanta, Kyler Murray out in Minnesota, they are proven quarterbacks from where they came from, Miami and out in Arizona. Now they are in new homes. They are unproven. They are with new teams. Okay? There's unprovenness there. That's why they ended up on the list at that spot. Not saying they're bad quarterbacks. Just saying there's that unproven ground. Jacoby Brissett in Arizona, we don't even know if he's going to play. He's holding out right now. Well, holding in. He's there. He's not on the field. He's not practicing with the team, but he's at the building. Okay, so right now they are prepping Carson Beck, the rookie, right? And they gave Carson Beck a contract this week. Why? Because there's a chance he may be the guy. Just like out in Pittsburgh, Drew Aller signed his rookie contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Drew Aller's not going to be the guy. The Aaron Rodgers came back, but Drew Aller may be the guy in the future. So who knows? We'll have to see. The Bengals, they announced that they're going to be wearing their all-white uniforms on New Year's Eve against the Baltimore Ravens, but then they doubled down and they said that they were going to be wearing those uniforms again on, I had the date written down. They're wearing the white uniforms twice this year. I believe Thanksgiving is when they're going to be wearing them as well. I had it written down. And I lost the other date. But the Bengals wear their all-white uniforms. Oh, we talked about that last week when they were going to be wearing the whites. And this is the second time they're going to be wearing the white uniforms on New Year's Eve against the Ravens. So, on Tuesday, the Bills, Panthers, Texans, Dolphins all reported to training camp. All the rookies are now in training camp for all the teams. All the veterans arrive on Tuesday for all the teams. So training camp will be in full focus on Tuesday for all the teams. Sam Laporta, tight end of the Lions, he suffered a herniated disc in last season. He is cleared for full training participation for training camp, so he is good to go, along with quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. He is back and in full swing for the Kansas City Chiefs in training camp. He is good to go. Offensive tackle of the Panthers, Taylor Moton, he was diagnosed with blood clots in his lungs. He's going to miss part of the NFL season. But things keep getting harder for the Panthers because defensive end Nick Scorton is out for the season. He tore his ACL in training camp, so he is done for the year as well. Tony Romo, CBS analyst and former Cowboys quarterback Tony Romo, he was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence this week. I'm going to say this right now. I get it that, some stuff is newsworthy stuff, right? Some stuff is worth talking about. We're not going to waste time on the Tony Romo thing. Why? Because, number one, he's under suspicion of driving under the influence. He knows he most likely knows he made a mistake. He shouldn't have, drove under the influence while intoxicated. We're not really going to keep an eye on this story. We will personally, but we're not going to do it for the sake of talking about it on the show. Simple as that. I'm a fan of Tony Romo's work for CBS and being an analyst. I love watching the CBS games when he's on because he's such a good analyst. He is. Just like Tom Brady. Tom Brady came into his own, right? Love listening to them. They're human beings, make mistakes, make stupid mistakes like this. This is something we don't need to talk about further down. Just breaking this as news. That's all. Will Grier, former quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, he retired back in June. He is now part of the Dallas Cowboys coaching staff. So there you go. Got a job right after retiring. The Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to be building their new $3 billion dome stadium, and it will be ready by 2031. I seen some of the specifications for this stadium, and they're saying that it's going to have Arrowhead like, it's going to look like Arrowhead, but it's also going to be a new stadium. Thing looks beautiful. If that's what it's going to be, then Chiefs fans get excited. Your stadium is going to look freaking awesome in 2031. Just saying. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're going to be wearing their 76 jerseys on December 6th against the Chargers. So the old jerseys are coming back on December 6th against the Los Angeles Chargers. And last but not least, today is the official day where all 2026 NFL draft picks have been signed. So all 2026 NFL draft picks have been officially signed. That's it for the news. That's all we got. We wanted to run through this quick. We're going to take about a 30 to 45 second break here on the Huddle Up Podcast. We will be right back, and we are going to get into those preseason predictions right after this. All right, so you guys couldn't hear me. All right, make sure you're heading over to the Huddle Hub Podcast over on social media after the show today, over on TikTok, Instagram, X, and on Epic Studios at the Huddle Hub Pod. You're going to hit that follow button. Over on the YouTube, you're going to hit that subscribe button. That's how you follow on the YouTube. And, of course, over on the Twitch channel at the Huddle Hub Podcast, you're going to go over to the Huddle Hub Podcast on Twitch, hit that follow button. And, of course, all of our social media outlets are in the Twitch bio. You're just going to click on the one you desire to go to and help us build the Huddle Hub Podcast through the rest of the 2026 NFL offseason and beyond. Okay, so we are doing preseason predictions. Okay. And this means we are going to run down all 32 NFL teams and pick win-loss. So we're going to do this. Now, the cool thing is, and I want to see. I don't like that one. I don't like that one either. I don't like that one either. Trying to get it to where there we go. We'll just do this one. You guys should be able to see that. All right. So thanks to Cam, he showed me this website called NFL Perry Pick'ems. The website is called nflperry.com/preseason-challenge. And you can run down all 32 NFL teams' schedules and pick win-loss. Okay. The cool thing about this is we are going to start off with the AFC North and the Baltimore Ravens, right? So when I click on who I think is going to win this game, I go over to the Indianapolis Colts, and this game will already be picked. Why? Because I picked it already. So it saves it, okay? And the cool thing is, too, is we are going to do the playoffs as well. So we are going to make sure the seedings are done, which we are going to – it will be easy to figure out on here because they will have it placed. And we are going to pick who ultimately goes to Super Bowl 61. Okay? So let's start off with the Baltimore Ravens against the Indianapolis Colts. Huge matchup between the Colts and the Ravens, especially with Daniel Jones coming back, Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson is going to have a huge spotlight on him this year. If he doesn't get the Ravens to a certain point this year, I think the Ravens move on from the Indianapolis Colts. This is going to be a proving game for Baltimore, so Baltimore wins here. I think they're going to beat the Saints. They will go out and beat Dallas. In Dallas, they're going to beat Tennessee. They will beat Atlanta. Great start for the Baltimore Ravens at 5-0. Some hope there for the Baltimore Ravens. I think they go into Cleveland, and Cleveland does shock them inside Cleveland, where Cleveland wins their home game, but then Baltimore is going to bounce back and beat Cleveland in Baltimore. Baltimore against Cincinnati, tough matchup here. BJ Hill, he's on the PUP list right now for Cincinnati. A lot of unknowns for that Cincinnati defense right now. I think Baltimore goes out and wins this one, but then in the late season Week 17 matchup, we normally see Cincinnati, possibly fighting for their playoff lives. Cincinnati ends up picking up the win. I think the Bills end up beating the Ravens in Week 8 in Buffalo. Big matchup in Jacksonville for the Ravens. I think Jacksonville does pull this one off on the road. The Chargers and Ravens in Baltimore, where Baltimore ends up picking up the win at home. Carolina right now is hurting bad, especially on the defensive side of that ball with Nick Scorton being gone. This is a rough game for Carolina. But I will say this, Carolina, I think, is going to have a really good season at home. I think they shock the world and beat the Ravens. Texans are going to beat the Ravens. The Ravens are going to beat Tampa Bay in Week 14. And then we got the Pittsburgh-Baltimore matchup where I think they split. Pittsburgh wins at home. Baltimore wins at home. And the Ravens end their season at 10-7. All right, there's the start. And let's save that. And then the next team on the list is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, we're staying inside the AFC North, and look at that. See, the two games right here, Baltimore and Pittsburgh game, is already picked. There it is. Okay. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they're going to kick off the season with a win against the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta, a lot of unknowns at the quarterback position in Atlanta right now. I think Pittsburgh's going to take advantage of that and win their first week of the season. Then they have to head out to New England. Tough matchup against the Patriots. I think the Patriots end up picking up the win. I think Pittsburgh ends up picking up the win in week 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals. They end up going out to Cleveland and picking up the win in Cleveland. Indianapolis, by this time, Indianapolis might have their stuff going. Daniel Jones might be back to full form, and that could be a dangerous, dangerous thing. But I think Pittsburgh will squeak it out at home against the Indianapolis Colts. They're going to pick up the win against Tampa Bay in Tampa. They pick up the win in New Orleans against the Saints. They beat the Browns at home, but then later on in the season, they already beat Cleveland in Cleveland. Okay. Then they go to Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati will pick up the win out in Cincinnati. Philadelphia beats them in week 11. Denver will beat them in week 12 on a 3-4 game skid because they lose to the Houston Texans. But then I think they shock the world by beating Jacksonville in week 14. They beat the Panthers in week 16, beat the Titans in week 17, and we got the Pittsburgh Steelers who go 11-6 in 2026. Okay. Now our next team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's do the Cincinnati Bengals. They kick off their season in Tampa Bay against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Cincinnati. And again, Cincinnati, a lot of unknowns on that defense, but the Buccaneers no longer having Mike Evans on that offense, which was an intricate part of that offense. I think Cincinnati just squeaks by with a field goal win here. They're going to lose to the Texans in week 2. Lose to the Jaguars in week 4, beat the Dolphins in week 5, beat the Tennessee Titans in week 8. They go out to Atlanta where they beat the Falcons in Atlanta. The Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels just coming back from his injury. It's going to be a rough go for Washington. They're going to have to figure a lot of things out. Maybe they'll have it figured out by week 11. Who knows? But we're going to give Cincinnati the win there. They're going to beat the Saints in Cincinnati. Cleveland in week 13, they lose to Cleveland. They're going to end up losing to the Kansas City Chiefs in week 14. Panthers in week 15. They beat the Colts in a shocker in Indianapolis in week 16. And then the Bengals end up closing out their season 10-7 against the Cleveland Browns. Okay. And now the Cleveland Browns, final team of the AFC North. Week 1 in Jacksonville, a definite loss. I think they go into Tampa in week 2 and win that game. They're going to lose to Carolina in Cleveland in week 3. They'll beat the Jets in New York in week 5, Tennessee in week 7. Then they lose to the Saints in week 9. They'll lose to the Texans in week 10. Big game against the Raiders where they lose to the Raiders in Cleveland. They're going to beat the Falcons in week 14, beat the Giants in week 15, and lose to the Colts in week 17. The Browns do a little better this season, finish 7-10 on the year, and thus our AFC North champion, Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens in second, Cincinnati Bengals in third, Cleveland Browns in fourth. Okay. The AFC South is our next division we are going to do, and we got a toss-up game right out of the gate between the Bills and the Texans, okay? I think the Texans are going to have a really, really good season this year. I think they win week 1 at home against Buffalo. Obviously, we already have the Bengals game. I think they'll go into Indianapolis. Indianapolis will shock them in week 3 in their home, but then they bounce back, beat Dallas in Dallas, beat Dallas at home, beat Tennessee in Tennessee. They will lose to Jacksonville in week 6 in Jacksonville. Then they beat the Giants, they beat the Colts, they beat the Ravens, they beat the Steelers, they beat the Commanders, they beat the Jaguars, and they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, the Green Bay Packers, and the Tennessee Titans. A big, big run for the Houston Texans. We are missing a game. Oh, and the Chargers, 15-2, Houston Texans. And this is the same as my post-draft. I mean, the Houston Texans are looking good this year. Looking good. So it's going to be a crazy, crazy year to see if the Houston Texans are the team that can go 15-2. Okay. All right, we're going to do the Indianapolis Colts. Colts kicking off the season against Baltimore, losing, starting off 0-1. They are 2-4 already with the picks that we've made. I think the Colts are going to end up losing to the Chiefs in Kansas City in week 2. They'll end up beating Washington in week 4. They'll beat Tennessee at home. They'll go on the road and beat Minnesota. Lose to Jacksonville in Jacksonville, but then they beat Dallas, beat the Dolphins. They beat the Giants. They lose to Philly in week 14. They will beat the Titans in Tennessee and sweep the Titans. And then they're at home against the Jaguars where they finish 10-7. Okay. Next team is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot of expectations coming out of Jacksonville. And with the picks, we already started at 5-3. Okay. So week 2 against Denver. I think Denver ends up winning that game. And then week 3, they end up playing the Patriots. They play the AFC title game back-to-back here. I think they beat the Patriots in week 3. Philadelphia goes out to Jacksonville and beats the Jaguars in Jacksonville. And then we got the game in Tennessee in week 10. I think the Titans will shock the Jaguars in week 10. I do. I think the Jaguars get shocked in week 10, but then they bounce back in week 11 in New York, and then they beat the Titans at home. They'll beat the Bears in Chicago. They'll beat Dallas in Dallas and beat Washington in Jacksonville, finishing 11-6. Okay. We have one more team to do in the AFC South, and that is the Tennessee Titans, who are right now 1-9. 1-9 with our picks, which is crazy. I think they'll kick the season off with a win against the Jets, but then they lose to Philadelphia in week 2. A lot of unknowns out there in New York with the Giants in week 3, so I think they beat the Giants in week 3. They're going to lose to Dallas in week 11. Week 13, I think they could they can have a shocker against Washington and beat Washington in week 13, but then lose to Detroit in week 14. Lose to the Raiders in week 16, finishing the season 4-13. And that is the AFC South, with the Houston Texans winning the division. Okay. Let's go to the AFC East. Buffalo Bills will kick things off with the Buffalo Bills. They lose to the Texans, bounce back, and beat the Lions in week 2, beat the Chargers in week 3. They'll beat the Patriots at home in week 4. They're going to lose to the Rams in Los Angeles in week 5. They're going to beat the Raiders in week 6 in Las Vegas. They will beat the Vikings in week 9 in Minnesota. Beat the Jets. I think the Jets might pull a shocker out week 10 at home. I'll give the Jets the win at home, but then they bounce back, beat the Dolphins in week 11, beat the Chiefs in week 12. They're going to lose to the Patriots in New England, beat the Packers, beat the Bears, beat the Broncos, beat the Dolphins, beat the Jets. 13-4 for the Buffalo Bills. Let's go to the Miami Dolphins. We were going to do the Patriots, but we're going to do the Dolphins. Okay. Miami Dolphins kick off the season by losing to Las Vegas, losing to San Francisco, losing to Kansas City, beating Minnesota in Minnesota, shocking them, going into New York and beating the Jets, losing to New England in Miami, losing to Detroit in week 9 in Miami. They beat the Jets in week 12, lose to Denver, lose to Chicago. I think they can shock Green Bay maybe, but no, not with Malik Willis. And Malik Willis returning to Green Bay, And then I think they can beat the Chargers in week 16, lose to the Patriots week 17, 4-13 record for the Miami Dolphins. New York Jets are the next team we will do. Tough year for the New York Jets. Geno Smith at quarterback. I mean, they brought in some pieces to build to that puzzle, but it's still going to be a rough year. Lost to Green Bay, lost to Detroit, lost to Chicago, lost to New England in New England. They're going to lose to Vegas in New York, lose to the Chiefs. They might shock the Chargers in week 11. I'll say they beat the Chargers in an away game, but then they lose to Denver. They could beat Arizona, shock New England at home, and beat Minnesota. The 5-12 New York Jets. And then finally, the New England Patriots, the defending AFC champions, kicking things off against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Seattle's going to win this game. It's at home. It's in the 12. The Seattle wins at home to open things up, open the season, and start 1-0. New England's 5-4 at the moment. I think they beat the Raiders in New England. Chicago's ends up beating them in Chicago. Detroit ends up beating them in Detroit. They end up beating the Chargers in Los Angeles, beating the Vikings in New England. Kansas City ends up picking up the win, and then Denver ends up picking up the win. And they beat the Packers in New England, finishing 9-8. There is the AFC East, with the Buffalo Bills winning the division. Finally, the AFC West. AFC West, here we go. Denver ends up picking up the win in week 1 against Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes coming back. It's going to be a rough start for him probably because coming back from the injury. We're going to have the Rams beating the Broncos in Denver. The 49ers beat Denver in San Francisco. But then they beat the Chargers. They end up beating the Seahawks in what should have possibly been the Super Bowl 60, which should have been the Super Bowl 60 matchup. They beat Arizona. They end up beating Kansas City again, sweeping Kansas City, beating Carolina, beating Las Vegas at home, but then losing to Vegas on the road, and then beating the Chargers, finishing 13-4 for the Denver Broncos. Okay, let's do those beloved Kansas City Chiefs, eh? Let's do it. Let's do the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, already 5-3 on the year. With all the picks, I think they lose to Vegas in Vegas. They'll beat the Chargers. They're going to lose to Seattle, beat Atlanta, beat the Cardinals, lose to the Rams, lose to the 49ers. They're going to lose to the Chargers at home, and then beat the Raiders at home, finishing 9-8. Better season than last year. That's still a winning year and possibly a playoff appearance. Face it, Kansas City is not Kansas City no more. So we already did we got to do the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's do the Raiders. Okay, they lose to the Chargers at home. They beat New Orleans on the road. They lose to the Rams at home. Lose to the 49ers at home. Lose to the Seahawks at home. Beat the Chargers at home. And then beat the Cardinals on the road, finishing 9-8. And then the last AFC West team. We did the Raiders. We did the Chiefs. We got to do the Chargers. That's right. The Chargers are 2-10 right now. That's a rough go. They'll beat the Cardinals, lose to the Seahawks, lose to the Rams, lose to the 49ers, beat the Buccaneers. 4-13 season for the Los Angeles Chargers. Rough go. And that is it for the AFC. Okay, now let's look at the conference. Okay, the Houston Texans, they will have the first seed at 15-2. And they are the South champions. The Buffalo Bills, 13-4. And they are the East champions. The Denver Broncos are the West champions at 13-4. Now you see the Jacksonville Jaguars there at 11-6. They will be the 5 seed. Because we already have the Texans, who are the South champions. The Pittsburgh Steelers end up winning the North and are the 4th seed at 11-6. And we got the Ravens, who are going to be the 6th seed at 10-7. And the Cincinnati Bengals, who will also be in the playoffs at the 7th seed at 10-7. So the Texans would have the first round bye. The 2nd seeded Bills would host the Cincinnati Bengals, the 7th seed. The 3rd seeded Denver Broncos would host the 6th seeded Baltimore Ravens, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, the 4th seed, will host the 5th seeded Jacksonville Jaguars. But we still have the NFC to do. Okay, so we're going to do the NFC, but we're going to take about a 35 to 40 second break right here on the Huddle Up Podcast. We will be right back to do the NFC side of things right after this. right, so make sure you're heading over to the Huddle Up Podcast over on social media today after the show. Make sure you're hitting that follow button over on TikTok, Instagram, X, and on Epic Studios. Over on YouTube, you're going to hit the subscribe button. Over on the Twitch channel, you're going to hit the follow button over at the Huddle Hub Podcast on Twitch. Help us build the Huddle Hub Podcast through the rest of the 2026 NFL offseason. And beyond. I normally don't drink orange juice with pulp in it, and I'm drinking orange juice with pulp in it right now. And it's like, ugh. All right, we got to do the NFC side of things now. We did the AFC. Now it's time to do the NFC, and let's kick things off with the NFC East and the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they kick off the season and beat Washington. Then they got that big Week 3 matchup against Chicago, and we all know what happened on Black Friday last year in Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia gets their revenge. They will start the season off 5-0, but because we have already picks 7-1, they will beat the Carolina Panthers, beat Dallas in Philly, but then lose to Dallas in Dallas. Washington will bounce back and win in Washington. They end up sweeping the New York Giants. They'll beat the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona and the Seattle Seahawks at home, and then a rough game against the San Francisco 49ers. It's going to all depend on where the 49ers are at this point because we know they had injury problems last year. We are going to give the 49ers the win at home against Philadelphia, finishing 13-4 on the year. Let's do those Washington Commanders. They're returning Jaden Daniels. Okay, they're already 1-6. Lost to Dallas in Dallas, but then they beat Dallas at home. The New York Giants, they end up beating the New York Giants at home and then losing to New York in New York. Okay, they're going to lose to San Francisco in San Francisco. They will lose to Seattle at home, lose to the Rams at home. Beat the Arizona Cardinals. They will beat the Atlanta Falcons and beat the Minnesota Vikings. A 6-11 go for the Washington Commanders with the returning Jaden Daniels. It's going to be a rough year, I think, for the Washington Commanders because this is the third year to where their team is a little different than what it was the previous year. So I think Washington needs to start finding some consistency with their roster. That's the bottom line. They're going to have to if they want to continue being a successful franchise. New York Giants already 1-8, rough. Okay, they're going to start the season off. They're going to have that shocker in Week 1 and beat Dallas. Okay, then Dallas ends up beating them in Week 17 at home. Okay, they're going to beat Arizona in Arizona, lose to the Rams in Los Angeles, beat Arizona at home. They're going to lose to the Saints in New York, lose to those 49ers, lose to the Seattle Seahawks, lose to the Detroit Lions, finishing 3-14. Another rough year for the New York Giants and a first year for Mr. John Harbaugh himself. And finally, the Dallas Cowboys, they're already 4-7 because of all the picks. They're going to end up beating Tampa Bay. They're going to lose to the Green Bay Packers. They're going to beat Arizona, lose to the San Francisco 49ers, lose to the Rams, and lose to the Seattle Seahawks, finishing 6-11. And there it is, the NFC East, Philadelphia Eagles winning it. Cowboys and Commanders, both 6-11. The Giants, 3-14. Let's go out to the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers, some expectations out there in Carolina. They made the playoffs last year, even with a losing record. I think Carolina's going to be slightly better than they were last year, but it's going to be rough because they already lost a man on their offensive line. They lost Nick Scorton on the defensive line. So a little bit of a change of mindset here. I mean, Nick Scorton, I think, could have been a huge candidate for Defensive Player of the Year, but now that's pretty much gone unless he finds a way to get back before the season ends, but he'd still not win Defensive Player of the Year. I think we get the shocker out in Carolina where they beat Chicago at home in Week 1. Okay, now Atlanta, they'll beat Atlanta at home and on the road. They're going to lose to the Detroit Lions at home. They'll beat Tampa Bay at home, but lose to Tampa on the road. They're going to go out to Green Bay and shock the Packers. They're going to beat the Saints in New Orleans, but then I think New Orleans might come in and shock and beat Carolina in Carolina. And then Seattle comes in and they win. Carolina goes into Minnesota and wins 11-6 for those Carolina Panthers. I still think they're going to have a huge turnaround this season. Let's go out to Atlanta, where they are 0-8 already. 0-8. Rough go for those Atlanta Falcons. Let's give them some wins. A win against Tampa at home, a win against the Saints at home, a win against the Minnesota Vikings, a shocking win against those Detroit Lions in Week 13. but then they lose to Tampa. In Tampa, they lose to the 49ers in San Francisco, and they lose to the Chicago Bears at home. They're going to beat the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans, but then lose to the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. 5-12 for those Atlanta Falcons and Mr. Tua Tagovailoa. So, next NFC South team to go to. If I can find one here, let's go out to Tampa. They are 2-8 right now. Rough go. They're going to beat the Minnesota Vikings in week 3. I think they'll shock the Green Bay Packers in week 4 and win it at home. They're going to lose to the Bears in week 9, lose to the Lions in week 11, beat New Orleans in week 15, lose to those Rams, and then lose to the Saints in week 18 because by that time all the starters will be sitting. And 5-12 for those Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's rough. That's rough. Now, again, this might change because this is not our final prediction. This is just the preseason, like before the season kicks off prediction. So, New Orleans Saints, they're already 3-9 since the picks. Detroit's going to come in and win week 1. They're going to beat the Vikings at home. They're going to lose to the Packers in New Orleans, beat the Cardinals in week 16, and then lose to those Bears. 5-12 for the New Orleans Saints. I believe that's it for the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers end up winning, and the Falcons, Saints, and Bucks all finish 5-12. Panthers, the standalone team. Standalone team. That is rough. All right, let's go out to the NFC West. 49ers are already 10-0. They're going to be 11-0 after beating the Rams out in Sao Paulo, Brazil in week 1. Okay, they beat the Arizona Cardinals in week 3. Now, the Cardinals are going to shock them in week 18 because all the starters will be sat by then. They'll be in the playoffs, all that stuff. I think the 49ers will sweep the Rams this year. Okay, they're going to beat Seattle in San Francisco, but lose to the Seahawks in Seattle. They're going to beat the Minnesota Vikings, the 49ers, 15-2. Another 15-2 team. So, let's go out to Seattle, the defending Super Bowl champions. They're 9-3 already. They're going to beat the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona to go 10-3. They're going to lose to Chicago. Arizona is going to come into week 9 and shock them in Seattle. And then the Rams will sweep Seattle with the Seahawks go 10-7. Let's go to the Los Angeles Rams. And like I said, I think San Francisco is going to beat the Rams by one game. By one game. The Rams go out to Arizona, go home against Arizona, and they beat Arizona in Arizona. They're going to beat the Green Bay Packers 14-3 to the 49ers 15-2. There's that one game. Let's go out to Arizona. They're already 2-14. They're going to finish the season 2-15. Okay. And that's it for the NFC West. Okay. Rough go for those Arizona Cardinals. Rough go. And then we got the NFC South, NFC North. Let's start off with the Detroit Lions. I think they're going to split with those Green Bay Packers home and away. They're going to beat Minnesota at home, and they're going to beat Minnesota on the road. Okay? They're going to split with Chicago home and away, 13-4 for those Detroit Lions. Let's go out to Chicago and see what the Bears are doing right now. At 8-5, they're going to beat the Minnesota Vikings at home. They'll lose to Minnesota in a shocker in week 18, and then they split with the Packers to go 10-7. Let's go out to Green Bay. The Packers are 7-8. They beat the Vikings in week 1 in Minnesota, and then they beat Minnesota to go 9-8. And then the Minnesota Vikings, I believe they're already done. Yep, 1-16. So there it is. All 272 games played. Let's look at the NFC standings. The San Francisco 49ers, the number 1 seed at 15-2. Now, the Rams, as you can see, they are in second place there, but they are actually the 5 seed because you can't have 2 of the same division in the top 4. Okay. Okay, we got the Detroit Lions who win the NFC North at 13-4. They are going to be the 2nd seed. The Philadelphia Eagles are the 3rd seed at 13-4, winning the East. Okay, we got the Carolina Panthers who win the NFC South at 11-6. Okay. Now in the 6th seed, we got the Chicago Bears at 10-7, and then we got the Seattle Seahawks at 10-7 as the 7th seed as well. And I've been saying that I think Seattle, they're going to end up being 10-7 at best, and as the 7th seed. And this has been my prediction for a while now. So we're going to have the Seattle Seahawks heading out to Los Angeles to take on the Rams in the wild card round, the 7 versus the 2. Or I'm sorry, the Lions. I apologize. The Seahawks heading out to Detroit to take on the Lions. The Bears head out to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. The last time these two teams met in Philadelphia was on Black Friday last year, where the Bears came in and took care of business against Philadelphia. And then the Rams head out to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Last year, the Rams headed out to Carolina to take on the Panthers in the wild card round. So this would be a rematch between these two teams. So now I could bring this screen down and bring me back up solo here. Okay, so let me make my thing here. Just got to make this really quick. That way we can follow along here. Why does this do this to me? I need a new keyboard. My keyboard decides to jump around all over the place here. So, all right, here we go. So there it is, the playoff standings. 49ers in first at 15-2, Lions 13-4, Eagles 13-4, Panthers 11-6, Rams 14-3, Bears 10-7, Seahawks 10-7 in the NFC. In the AFC, the Texans 15-2, Bills 13-4, Broncos 13-4, Steelers 11-6, Jaguars 11-6, Ravens 10-7, Bengals 10-7. Okay, so in the AFC side of things, we would have the Bengals at the 7th seed heading out to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Now the Texans are the bye team, so they would take on the lowest seed remaining. Okay, now you're probably thinking, Mike, how are you going to pick who wins what game? Okay. Well, this is how I did it when I would practice. When I would practice my predictions, there's a wheel that I used to pretty much pick, if it lands on the team, it wins. I'm going to show you. I'm setting it up right now. I am setting it up right now. So give me 1 second. It's 11 and 12. Okay. share the screen with you real quick. Now, this is a wheel pick randomizer, okay? And what I did was I spin the wheel, and whatever team it lands on, that's who wins the game. That's how this is going to work. Now, I know this is probably a stupid way to pick who wins what game, but you got to think, we get to the playoffs, it's a new season. Anything can happen. Thus, the wheel. Anything can happen here. Okay? It's a brand new season in the playoffs, so here we go. So, if it lands on a team, whatever team that lands on, they defeat the team they're facing, and they move on to the divisional round. So here we go. Let's spin that wheel. Let's see who wins the first matchup, whatever. And it's going to be the Denver Broncos defeating the Baltimore Ravens at home. So the Broncos, the 3rd seed, and we're going to put a star next to their name. And we're going to go and remove the Baltimore Ravens. Here we go. Second wheel spin, with the Ravens being gone. And it is the Pittsburgh Steelers defeating the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Steelers moving on for the first time in the playoffs in nearly 10 years. All right, here we go. One more matchup in the AFC. That is the Bills and the Bengals, and the Bills end up winning. All right. Look at that. So lowest seed remaining was the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are going to be the team heading out to Houston to take on the Texans, and the Broncos heading out to Buffalo to take on the Bills. All division winners ended up getting past the first round. We still got the NFC to decide, so let's do it. Let's see who moves on in the NFC side of things. And it's going to be the Chicago Bears going into Philly and shocking the Philadelphia Eagles. Wow. So they end up beating Philly on Black Friday in 2025. Then Philly goes into Chicago and beats Chicago in the 2026 regular season in week 3. But then Chicago goes into the playoffs and knocks out the Philadelphia Eagles. Look at that. Crazy, crazy. All right. We got 2 more matchups here. And the Carolina Panthers, they shock the world, eliminating those heavily favored Los Angeles Rams. Final matchup, Seahawks-Lions. Do the Seahawks become the 7-seed wonder? Or does Detroit move on and the Detroit Lions end up eliminating the Seahawks? Lions are going to get a second home game. The Chicago Bears will head out to San Francisco. And the Carolina Panthers head out to Detroit to take on the Lions. Okay. Now we got to set up here. We got the Bills who will be taking on the Broncos. The Steelers are going to be taking on the Houston Texans. So there's our AFC matchups. And then the Chicago Bears will head out to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. And the Panthers head out to take on the Detroit Lions. All right. So here we go. Divisional round matchups underway. Let's see who wins and goes to the conference championship game. And the San Francisco 49ers take care of business. They are going to host the conference championship game for the NFC side of things. The Chicago Bears, season over. And it's going to be the Denver Broncos, the 3rd seeded Broncos, eliminating the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills yet again another season without getting to the Super Bowl. Rough go for Buffalo after having a tremendous season. All right. Could Carolina shock Detroit? Is it going to move their way? No. And we get a rematch of the conference championship game from near about 2 years ago. The Lions and 49ers were in the conference title game. They are going to have the rematch out in San Francisco this time. And let's see who moves on to take on the Denver Broncos. And the 4th-seeded Steelers end up shocking the 1st-seeded Houston Texans. So the Steelers will head out to Denver to take on the Broncos. All right. So could the Broncos redeem themselves and get into the Super Bowl this year? Or will the Steelers end up doing what nobody thinks they would be able to do? And really, not a lot of people would think they could do it, but some people believe they could do it. Get to the Super Bowl. So the Steelers and Broncos in the AFC title game. We got the 49ers and Lions in a rematch of the NFC title game from a few years ago. Here we go. Conference championships underway. Who's going to Super Bowl 61? And the Detroit Lions finally do it. The Lions are going to the Super Bowl, beating the San Francisco 49ers. Who are they playing is the question. And the Denver Broncos, they right the wrong from last year and end up going to Super Bowl 61. So we got the Detroit Lions and the Denver Broncos. Super Bowl 61 would be the matchup. Let's spin it. Let's see who'd win it. Could Denver redeem themselves, get the win, be Super Bowl champions? And there it is, the Denver Broncos end up doing what a lot of people think they would have done last year, and that is win the Super Bowl. So there it is, the preseason predictions for this year. Now, again, these are not my final predictions. My final predictions will come a week before the season kicks off. So these are just preseason, second of 3 predictions. So there it is. All right, guys. That was a lot of fun to do. I cannot wait to do the final predictions a week before the season kicks off in August. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. And that is it for today's episode of the Huddle Hub Podcast. Make sure you're heading over to the Huddle Hub Podcast over on social media, over on TikTok, Instagram, X, and on Epic Studios at the Huddle Hub Pod. You're going to hit that follow button over on the YouTube. You're going to hit the subscribe button. That's how you follow on the YouTube. And, of course, over on Twitch, you hit that follow button as well at the Huddle Hub Podcast. All of our social media links are in the bio of the Twitch channel. You click on the one you desire to go to. Help us build the Huddle Podcast through the rest of the 2026 NFL offseason and beyond. You want to follow me? I'm over on social media at MetalMike714, TikTok, Instagram, X, and on YouTube. That's how you follow me. Okay? Now, this week, schedule as far as shows, Monday night over on the Table Spot PW Pod with myself and Cam. Right after Monday Night Raw, it is the go-home show for SummerSlam. So me and Cam will be making our SummerSlam predictions tomorrow night on another edition of the Table Spot at the Table Spot PW Pod on Twitch and on YouTube. And then on Wednesday night is the fallout from AEW's Redemption pay-per-view tonight. And me and Cam and Phil will be talking about AEW Dynamite on Wednesday night after it happens over on the Boom PW Pod on Twitch and on YouTube. Tuesday here on the Huddle Hub Podcast, the Tuesday edition of the Huddle Hub Podcast, me and John will be doing our preview, continuing our preview of each conference for college football leading up to the 2026 college football season. We are doing the Pac and Big 12 this week. We're probably going to throw the independent conference in there as well. So come join us on Tuesday night 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Huddle Hub Podcast. As I always say, be good to each other, be kind to each other, take care of each other, be patient with each other. Remember, the world is not moving as fast as you think. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys. Have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll see you Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon. Till then, deuces.